Hello, my name is Mark. Welcome to Mark's Remarks. Today I'm going to read a review for Teaching with AI, a practical guide to a new era of human learning by Jose Antonio Bowen and C. Edward Watson. I hope you don't enjoy. The central problem with AI is that it tends toward a generic lack of specificity, something which I term vague complexity. Thus, any book written using primarily AI, such as this one, by definition cannot comment meaningfully on any topic. I know the authors of this book used AI, not just because roughly half of the book is simply lists of prompts, but because it concludes with key themes in exactly the same fashion as AI output. Other reviewers have pointed out bad misspellings and grammatical errors, which would be embarrassing enough for a self-published book, let alone for a supposedly reputable publisher like Johns Hopkins University Press. In my case, I noticed at least three occasions when the audiobook reader said IA, in other words, Iowa, instead of AI, artificial intelligence. I've never heard anyone say IA aloud instead of AI, and trying it myself as a human, it feels really awkward and difficult. This backs up my theory that the audiobook was not read aloud by a human, but rather by an AI that they gave a pseudonym to. I'm honestly not sure which is worse. A human reader who didn't catch these blatant errors or Blackstone audiobooks using an AI. Either way, the reads very unclearly, and even attempting to speed it up to a meager 1.3 times speed made basic pronunciation comprehension difficult. But to return to the start, that's the problem with AI. Its quality degrades extremely quickly. The danger of AI recursion is, to me, the best thing that could happen to help undermine this non-technology, which fails on every single level. The biggest way that it fails is that it stupefies those who use it. In the case of this book, the authors, if you can even call them that, didn't explore even once the extremely debatable claim that AI will be used by everyone in the future, and furthermore, that that's a good thing. The main problem with this assertion is that all AIs on the market today are imbued with a vaguely secular humanist neoliberal tech bro worldview. This is a large part of why they're so superficial, dated, and unreliable. For anyone who operates outside of that worldview, and for anyone who wants content not aligning with those assumptions, AI is basically worthless. Even telling it to role play doesn't help because it's still trained off such huge amounts of garbage data, and it heads toward the average of that landfill, which is roughly the consistency and odor of noxious sludge. I genuinely don't know what the authors were thinking when they claimed the second benefit was that this learning was not bound by human knowledge and bias. What do they think the LLM was trained on? The platonically ideal thoughts of God? AI is biased and unethical just like us. Furthermore, our bias and strangeness is precisely what makes human writing fun to read. And so removing that is precisely what makes AI writing so soulless. To me, there are no questions of how to best use AI. Instead, the only valid questions concern the ethics of its use and whether it should ever be used in the first place. For example, the authors wrote that you could ask AI to, quote, make the sound more empathetic and personal. Right there, I had to freak out a bit because if you ever get to the point in your life where you have to ask an AI how to be more empathetic, you probably need to seriously consider how you got to this point in your life. The only way to become a more empathetic human is to be more human, consume and create art, make new friends, experience life in all of its diversity, not reaching for the crutch of AI whenever you have the slightest dilemma. Related to the shocking lack of humanity in that prompt, I also found shocking that the authors didn't understand AI's popularity has absolutely no bearing on how ethical it is. The fact that it has been trained almost exclusively on illegally sourced copyrighted material should cause a class action lawsuit so large no corporation would ever touch the stuff again. Even though that hasn't happened and probably won't, AI is essentially worthless. An easy way to think about this is that AI is analogous to steroid use. Though someone on steroids might still have an average physique, you can definitely tell in the extreme cases when steroids are being used. Therefore, it's at best something mediocre, and at worst, it sticks out and causes red flags. This helps illuminate my initially paradoxical thoughts about its use in higher ed. Um, Plus, AI is the new average of work. I totally agree with that. Negative. With a little editing, a student could create a B paper with minimal effort. Totally disagree. Those are both quotes. Um, AI has not increased the quality of the average paper, it has lowered it. Superficial competency is always worse than unhinged human creativity. Operating with the assumption of inevitability is the central fallacy of this book. If you reorient your rubrics to have AI as the new F, then it forces students to use AI rather than continuing to encourage them to avoid it, which is necessary lest we lose our souls. As stated above, AI writing necessarily trends toward a mediocre average, so why build upon sand? Why not build upon the rock of human originality? Why settle for mediocre when you can rise above that? What sort of a hell do these authors live in if they really are even the authors? Despite how much I hate grading papers, the part near the end about AI for feedback feels exceptionally unethical. Because of the author's fallacious starting assumptions of AI's inevitability, they insanely think that giving this feedback through the AI is fine. This is why thinking without AI is important. Otherwise, you'd never catch this or many of my other complaints. Unless, of course, this was entirely written by AI simply to comb negative reviews like mine, then to improve it via our responses. But even if that's the case, my valid points will get lost in the sea of irrelevancy, and the average will always win out anyway. I can't wait for the eternal gray of the future, where there are no quality products, only average half-functional products. Snap up your daydream, Mark. You're writing a review. I wrote that. Returning to pedagogy, all I can see in the example assignments and prompts near the end of the book are the many ways students will fall through the cracks who don't already have exceptional critical thinking skills. So many of these prompts totally skip any writing or critical thinking on the part of the student and basically just ask them to sit down on a computer tinkering with AI all day, which to me is precisely the opposite of what students should be doing with their time. Rather than seeing how to get even more crutches in your writing to make it even more average, we should look at how to avoid the crutches that all the lazy, stupid people will subject themselves to. People who write without AI are the future, not those who use it. Those who use it will be forgotten in the trash heap of the average, which is curiously shaped like a bell curve. Thanks for watching. Do not like, do not subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.